You are listening to the IoT for All Media Network.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the IoT for All podcast on the IoT for All Media Network. I'm your host, Ryan Chacon, one of the co-creators of IoT for All. Now, before we jump into this episode, please don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform or join our newsletter at iotforall.com/newsletter to catch all the newest episodes as soon as they come out. So, without further ado, please enjoy this episode of the IoT for All podcast. Welcome, Lisa, to the IoT for All show. How's your week going so far?
Very good. Thank you. I just woke up in Los Angeles today, so it's a nice change of scenery from Stockholm. A bit warmer, a bit sunnier.
Yeah. How are you dealing with the time difference?
It's okay. I usually find the first night better than the second. At least I am so tired first day, as long as I can stay awake. But,
do you find it harder to go backward time wise, or when you get home, is it harder for you to adapt to?
I think for me, it doesn't really matter which way. It's always hard to go
always
home.
Hard. All right, fair enough.
And it's just when I come home, when you're going out, it's fun. Yep. When you come home, you're just tired.
Fair enough. Well, I hope the MWC goes well for you. It should be a good event.
I hope so too. It's going to be a good show for Ericsson, I think.
Good. I think the best way to start off would be to have you take the audience through a quick introduction about yourself, give a little background on who you are, what you do, how you got to where you are, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. All right. So my name is Elenius Taylor. I'm heading up the portfolio marketing at a part of Ericsson, which we call Technologies and New Businesses, where our IoT business is hosted. So I have been working in the IoT space for, time flies. I think it's 4 or 5 years now.
Wow.
But before that, I've done basically all sorts of new types of service developments in the telecom space for the last 18 years. So I've done mobile TV before the iPhone. You can imagine how great that service was.
I'm sure it was fantastic. Yep.
We tried to launch a soccer, mobile soccer service, which I don't know if you know this, but the color green and the white ball is like the worst thing to get on if the screen resolution is not good, you won't see a thing. So it was not a great success, but that's how it is when you're pushing the boundaries.
So how have you liked your time in the IoT space?
It is a very, very exciting space to be in, because it's what I find so fascinating. I think that's why I've been in telecom since I graduated, because it's one of those businesses where it touches every part of society and your own personal life. And I think it's the same with IoT. Now you can see how when we go from lots of proof of concepts and conceptual phases to true commercial deployments, you can really see the impact it does. And I think that's it's so inspiring for me.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a similar story for a lot of people who are in the space now or who have transitioned into the space over the last number of years. The potential for it is incredible. So, so speaking about IoT, can you talk a little bit more about Ericsson, what you guys are doing in the IoT space? How is what you're doing kind of different than what's out there, just to kind of catch the audience up a little bit?
Absolutely. And Ericsson is second nature to me. I'm also Swedish, but just to give like a one sentence on what Ericsson, of the Ericsson history, Ericsson has been around for 140 years in the telecom space. And we started, of course, with wired telecom communications of different sorts. But since the last 40 years, we've been doing mobile as well. So all the Gs we've been heavily involved in, and also driven most of the standards in that space. So now we're very excited about the 5G rollouts around the world.
Okay.
So Ericsson is first and foremost a networks equipment provider. But in the IoT space, we also help the telecom operators with connectivity and device management to make sure that they can take that solution in a good way to enterprises.
Right.
And we also work directly with some specific industry verticals, like in the automotive space, we've been working with Volvo cars for 7 or 8 years. And also in the manufacturing space, we do a lot of interesting stuff. So that's a little bit what we do, but mainly we have our IT platform, which is called IoT Accelerator, that does connectivity and device management. And also we provide private networks as well.
Okay.
As
That's
the
great.
regular networks.
So then how does that connect to what you focus on in your role on a day-to-day basis?
So my team is responsible for making sure that IoT Accelerator and the connected services around that is used as much as possible. So how we operate is that we connect, I don't know, I mean, in Swedish we have a saying which a beloved child has many names. I don't know if it's the same saying in English, but sometimes we call them telecom service providers, we call them communication service providers, telcos. Do you have a favorite in this podcast, or
no? Anything
should I
you
just
want?
go with?
I go with
telcos.
There you go. Telco works. There you go.
Yeah, good. So, so we work with the telcos and try to ensure that they can succeed in taking these IoT services that they want to offer to the enterprises. So, a big part of my role is to help that work forward.
Gotcha.
Just a couple of weeks before I went here to LA, we had what we call IoT Community Day. So we invited all our telecom service providers or telcos, as well as lots of operators, to have a face-to-face matchmaking and competence sharing and the contact sharing, which is one of those great things that really shows how we are going from a nascent industry trying to find its way forward to looking at real big business.
Absolutely.
So that's a lot of the things that we do on a day-to-day basis. So those type of matchmaking, either physical or digital, is part of the work.
That's great. So something we haven't really addressed too much on the show in the past is how to market an IoT solution or an IoT platform, let's say in this case. How does marketing, in your mind, kind of really aid in the adoption of IoT platforms and then connected devices as a whole?
I think our biggest role, all of us marketeers in this space, is to try to really make the technology less abstract. Technology is, and this has been a space which has been very technology driven, because the technological advancements are exciting in themselves. And it's been, sometimes I've heard people say it's like a technology looking for a problem rather than the other way around.
Right.
And I think our biggest role here is to really make sure that we can describe what the value of these services are and make them concrete in people's mind. I think in not too many years' time, we probably won't be talking about IoT at all. And you can really see that when IoT is starting to make a difference, it's called whatever it is.
Right.
Then we're talking about connected vehicles, or we're talking about smart meters, or whatever value it is that we bring, or the technology brings. I mean, we don't talk about connected or like electric light bulbs anymore. They're just light bulbs.
Right.
So when I think the technology gets more utilized and in everyone's life, we will probably not be speaking of IT in that sense at all, I think.
Sure. So from your experience working in other industries and then getting into IoT on the marketing side, how does marketing kind of differ when you're in the IoT market versus other industries that you've worked in, if at all? And the reason I ask is because one of the reasons IoT for All was started was because we saw a big gap in adoption with IoT. And the problem we were kind of realizing was that because there's so many different components of an IoT solution, different technologies, different just new kind of words out there that people are unfamiliar with, people are very hesitant to try new technologies. So education was a huge part of what we believed was needed in the market in order to educate companies, individuals, decision makers on what IoT is and what it can do, and hopefully overcome that hesitation and maybe even that level of fear of implementing something that they're unfamiliar with that can actually provide a ton of benefit for them. So I'm curious to kind of get your thoughts on how marketing in the approach you take in an IoT space is different from other industries you may have worked in.
I couldn't agree more. This is so true to what what we try and do every day. And I think, as a marketeer, I always feel we can do better,
Right.
but it's really about, we talk about that we want to make sure that we make cellular IoT, because that's the space that we mainly work with. We have to make it easy. And easy to use, easy to adopt, easy to scale. And marketing is such an important role in making it easy. We have to make it, understandable and concrete, and also just like you say, it's step-by-step guides, or it's understanding in a very concrete way, how can I derive any business value from this type of solution, and what have others done,
Right.
and how can I learn from them? And not just by, putting a reference case on the website, but bringing these people together in different types of settings, to have that matchmaking and information sharing. Because coming back to the IoT that I just mentioned, one of the most amazing things is to see these 100+ people with very, very specific interest in the world come together and just meet their, soulmates in a way. Like here we all are speaking the same language, understanding each other, because they're, like you say, it's still a subset of the technology space. But I think and to go truly mainstream and get that amazing scale that we all see is going to happen, everything has to be much more easy. And there, I think marketing plays a very crucial role.
So if we kind of break this down and connect this more to what's going on at Ericsson, what is the approach or philosophy, if you will, in marketing IoT within the walls of your company?
So Ericsson has been working with the telcos for, like I said, 140 years or something, depending on when they were founded. So that audience and those customers we know very, very well. So for us to talk about IoT to that target audience is relatively easy compared to what our biggest challenge is to really make sure that we speak to all the users of the IoT solution. So we have a big role in helping our telcos drive their IoT business forward, and there to look at what type of enterprises do we see will gain the most value of the type of services that we together with the telcos are offering. Is something that we have been working am working quite a lot with, to really see where do we, because IoT can mean anything. It could be any use case in any industry verticals or consumer, or anything from a very, very simple use case to something extremely advanced and critical. So I see that from a marketing point of view, one of our biggest roles to play is to truly define where we can make the most difference. Where can the telcos make the most difference? Because that relationship and that communication is something that is not really there today. I think what I can see across industries, if people speak either on an extremely high level in terms of, we will save the world. We call sometimes me and my colleague, we joke about it and say it's like a World Economic Forum type of speak. It's either that or, what exactly is the frequency band for narrowband IoT? Okay. So it's that sort of practical in between that I think that I see that we will develop and work with a lot going forward to take that business mind.
Great. And so when you're working on a marketing campaign or strategy with your team, how do you go about defining the target audience and who you're going to kind of approach and work to try to, not sell, but just make aware of what's going on at Ericsson and the companies that you work with and represent? How does that what's the strategy behind that?
So we have a couple of data sources which are that we use. One of the most exciting ones that I actually just love looking at the data of who are using our services today. Okay. What type of enterprises are using our services today? So there we see that a big portion is still or it is in the utility space. I mean, you can see two main type of use cases that are using our services today. It's either, small things which are, screwed to a wall. It's a meter, it's an alarm, it's something like that. Or it's something that moves. So the biggest portions of use cases on our platform is either smart meters or home alarms, or connected vehicles, fleet management, or more commercial fleet management for example, heavy machinery and things like that. So those are the two mains that we see. So that's, of course, one way of looking at who do we address? It's which type of enterprise are using it today, and what trends do we see there? I don't know how familiar you are with eSIM or EUICC.
Okay.
It's, when you have a phone or anything today, you need a SIM card to connect to the network.
Right.
So a big obstacle in IoT is that you would have to physically put that SIM card into the thing. So EUICC is basically a software-based solution instead, so a soft SIM that you can put in. We see that technology growing a lot on our platform. And the funny thing is, of course, cars is the biggest types of vehicles. It's the biggest use case there. But the second biggest, that's coffee machines. And so I was speaking to the team. We need to figure out why. What is the pain point that we're solving in that space that they want, soft SIMs. So that's one big source of information for us. And of course, otherwise we do, the regular business planning and external analysis, going to shows like Mobile Congress LA now, or IT Solutions World Congress that you will attend next week. Those are great sources to see sort of where do we see things going.
So once you've kind of narrowed down, let's say you picked a use case, you kind of defined the target market or target audience, if you will, what's the next steps for you guys on developing a campaign or developing the messaging that is going to be then pushed out to make, to promote Ericsson and everything you guys have going on?
I am a true believer in strong content. I think you need to know what you're speaking about, and need to really understand what the story is that you want to tell, and figure out what is the angle that makes the difference here. How can we tell something that we maybe haven't seen from others before? What can we bring as insights that others don't have? So I think it's the core of any strong marketing is always the content for me. Then, of course, the packaging of that content is equally as important, to figure out a good, clear way to tell that story and have that to try and make the technology less abstract.
And have you found a type of content or a channel in which you've had more success than others to kind of connect with your target audience? Has it been more written content, video content, audio content? Is it through social media? Is it more through, bigger, larger, long form pieces of content that are maybe is put on your website? What have you guys found the most success in?
Oh, that's an excellent question. I think that's something where it varies a lot, and I see a strong shift now in also how especially C-levels are consuming content, and it is trickier and trickier to get through in a really good and strong way. And so I think what we have been doing for a long time is to have different type of thought lead content. So we have an amazing report that comes out every quarter, which is our Ericsson mobility report. It just gives in-depth projections on how we see the mobile market continuing or developing over the next 5 years, and to truly have those unique things and get that picked up in other types of news sources, for example. That is always the strongest way, I think, to get your message across, to get someone else to speak on your behalf. So I think for us, the most successful way for us is always when we speak with our customers and partners and have us jointly talk about the benefits together. So if it's over social, sometimes that's great. I mean, especially some of our partners are very strong in social. We see, for example, we're working with a company called Brighter, who is a really small startup working with a diabetes monitor, like a little wearable to monitor your insulin levels. And they are very strong in social, for example. And there we see, and when we work with them, we see loads of effect there.
Okay.
And then in other cases, it could be like a strong demo at events for as well. It's also a really nice way to show what we do together with our partners.
Yeah, that sounds great. And have you, through your marketing efforts and different campaigns you've run, have you ever run into any, I guess, campaigns that you were pretty confident would work, or messaging that you thought would work, but for some reason they didn't, and kind of what you've learned from that, or on as to why it didn't work out? Was there a kind of a different kind of view on the internal marketing side of the market, and then you received kind of the feedback of maybe it not being with that as engaged with as much, and just something worth maybe sharing to the audience on just some preconceived ideas of marketing and IoT, but actually how it really is when you start doing it?
Oh, that's a great question. I think whenever we develop content and campaigns, we can see that it's like and especially now when we have so much data compared to, when we had in the billboard days, we can do a lot of tweaking as we go along. And I think words matter, and people are, like you say, they are even more than maybe I anticipated, are still looking for things like, okay, please help me explain narrowband IoT versus Cat M1, or please help me explain these, different types of terms. And whereas we have sometimes been trying to develop, get different types of business strategies and, those type of content pieces out there. But the ones that we've seen really perform the most is when we have concrete questions that people want an answer to. And I think it gives also, like, coming back to the beginning of our conversation, where we are as an industry. I think that's still a very important educational role for every one of us to play.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'd be curious to see how things develop over the next number of years as IoT becomes more, or the adoption of IoT increases and more people understand the pieces of it, understand the benefit and the value it provides, how marketing changes and what needs to be done.
Yeah, we can have a chat in 3 years again.
Yeah,
to see where we are.
Absolutely. I get from the marketing side, in addition to outside of the education piece, have you seen any kind of just general roadblocks in just, or I guess ideas on general roadblocks that when it comes to IoT adoption that you're maybe witnessing on your side of things versus when we talk to, let's say, more engineers, they kind of have their ideas on why adoption is, maybe companies are hesitant to adopt IoT. Do you have any kind of thoughts on what you've seen on the marketing side that may be one of the problems?
I think there are. I think the space is still. Since IoT can mean everything, it can also mean nothing.
Absolutely.
So I think that's one of the biggest roadblocks, and to find. To have the right conversation at the right time with the right people is a difficult matchmaking process to get in place. And I just looked at from the going back to the event that we spoke about a bit earlier to see where should we be, who should we meet. Haven't really. Even on that space, hasn't really consolidated to have that clear leader events yet. Which ones are the best one to attend to get the right business, and that fluctuates over time. So that also shows that we are in that exciting but sometimes challenging time.
Have you found?
And
go ahead.
No, and also, there are no strong. There are a couple of good. Media outlets in this space, but it's the same there. It's still forming, I think, which are the leading ones going forward. And as a marketeer, that's what always you're looking for. Where can I reach my audience?
Yeah. Have you found more success at certain events over other events? We've been to a lot, and we kind of have our thoughts on which ones we think are.
Oh, I'm curious to hear what you say. I think so. From our perspective, we are in a bit of a shift now where we see we need to speak to, for example, directly to the end users a bit more. Yep. And a couple of years ago, we went to, for example, IoT World, yep. I think it was called, in Santa Clara, sure. which was good from one perspective, but it was very developer centric and not so business focused, maybe. Mm-hmm. At that time, so we decided we need to look at other options for us. Yep. Even though I think it's a great event, it just wasn't right for us. Since I've been speaking a lot to the telcos. The Mobile World Congress events have been great for that, okay. Because that's where they all are. Sure. But I think IoT Solutions World Congress is a great one in Barcelona. I haven't been myself though, so that's
I would. But I guess, I mean, we enjoy all the events that we've gone to, but I would say the most successful ones for us have been IoT Solutions World Congress, and the reason is they take a different approach, and I think it's a good approach. They focus more on solutions, and I think solutions are really the key to IoT adoption growing. There's obviously other technical and technology related pieces to that same story on what can increase adoption, like, with 5G, with LPWAN technology and so forth. But when you have an event that's very much focused on kind of what is possible with IoT, the solutions, it puts things into a very easy frame of reference for people that want to adopt IoT. Like, you're giving them a kind of almost off the shelf solution, like you're going to a store and buying something and you can really understand the benefits of it, versus trying to be very abstract and trying to sell them on the technology and the high level, like what this could possibly do. It's like physically in front of them. Here's a solution. Here's what it does. Here's how it applies to your business. And majority of the entire event was focused on solely that. So that was, I think, because they were hyper focused on that, it was a very different experience than most of the events who try to do everything. And I think because of that, it was it was one of the best experiences we've had. In addition to that, IoT World, I think, is great. It's just such a big event. So many people, so many things to do. A lot of people to talk to, has been great. MWC Americas is good. Even CES to some level has, its IoT section, but then again, CES is it's a beast of its own. It's huge, massive. It covers all of Vegas. It's a lot of fun, but it's tough to see everything. So I think that's kind of where things stand from us. We've been to some other smaller events that we think are good if you're, if it applies to your business or industry or kind of what you're trying to sell. I think
and more niche one.
Exactly. Those niche events are fantastic as well. So. But at a high level, I think that some of those bigger ones that I mentioned we've had the best experiences for our own benefits. So that's where we are. But hopefully you'll get to go to the Barcelona event at some point, because that's a great one.
Yeah, I know. I had it was in my plans, but it doesn't always work out.
No, I understand that.
Plans change. That's how it is.
Yeah. As we kind of wrap up here, I wanted to ask if you had, let's say we have people out there that either do marketing in the IoT space themselves, or have marketing people that work for them, or in some way they're connected to that space within their organization. What's important for marketing in IoT, for people who market in IoT, to keep in mind when they're marketing an IoT solution or product or platform? And what kind of general advice do you have for those people who are in the marketing space in the IoT industry?
Oh, that's a great question. Again, my main advice would always be to try and explain and figure out and really understand what is it that specific use case is trying to achieve. What is the value that it brings? What is the true outcome of it? And then try to couple that with the technical solutions that support it. But start from that why is this relevant? Why is this interesting? And I think that comes from marketing always start with why. Why should someone really care about this? And I think if you have that clear and you feel yourself that, wow, this is truly interesting, then other people will as well. Yeah. Like you have to believe it yourself. Right. I think that's the strongest one. Yeah. And tech is fun, so you shouldn't shy away from that. But try and make it a bit more concrete.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think explaining the benefits and how this helps organizations versus maybe focusing on features and that kind of thing, I think is important. Breaking it down into a way that people can understand what you're saying and not trying to be overly technical, I think is good advice for companies who are doing marketing in the IoT space. So I think all of that is very important for people to keep in mind. So at the beginning of the show, you mentioned the Ericsson's IoT Accelerator platform. And I'm curious, just before we finish up, to hear a little bit more about that platform and kind of how it works, how it differs from what's in the market, what's the main focus of it, that kind of thing.
So absolutely. So IoT Accelerator is our platform for connectivity and device management. So what is that? So it's basically when you want to connect your thing, you have lots of different options out there. We focus on cellular connectivity. Okay. So like 4G, 5G, LTE, Cat M1, those type of cellular connectivity solutions. And there you will need to have a way to, get one pane of glass into all your devices to figure out what type of connectivities, SLA are they on? What are the price plans? How many do I have? Which state are they in? And that's basically what connectivity management does. And that's what we can then, what we offer in partnership with telcos to enterprises across the world. I think we have around 4,500 enterprises on our solution today. So it's a solution that's been around for quite a few years now, but it's cool to see the pickup. We actually doubled the number of subscriptions since the start of the year. So it's an exciting time to be in. And I think what we do, if you ask me the second question, what do we do different than others? And there you can see from a very technical perspective or a commercial perspective, but I would say that we have a couple of unique things as a company. We know connectivity so well. I mean, we've been there and, really built it up from the ground that we can truly advise the enterprises in this space to help them make the best choices there and also give the best solution experience for them.
That's great.
So that's, I think, is the strongest
Very
part.
Cool. Yeah. One of our first guests on the podcast was Daniel Elzalde, who's a head of IoT for North America for Ericsson. He's been associated with IoT for All since we started. Basically, he's one of our first contributing writers. He was somebody we met up with at events many times. So he's been a good friend to IoT for All, and so the more people we can associate with at Ericsson and meet, the better. And I think this has been a great conversation. One of the last questions I wanted to ask you, because it was in my notes, but I forgot to bring it up earlier, was there was a report published. I think Ericsson, you got all published it. It was around IoT strategies that telecom service providers were executing. Can you tell us a little bit more about the report and kind of the main takeaways, lessons learned from it that are worth noting?
Oh, absolutely. So since we're working so closely with the telcos, we have done a few different research on what are their biggest roadblocks in putting together a successful IoT strategy. And I think we had 8 different dimensions, and I won't walk you through them all, but what we can see that they are really, focusing on and sometimes also struggling with is to figure out what is our strategic intent? What is it that we, from a operator perspective, telco perspective, really want to do in this space? What type of role do we want to take in the value chain? Which are the verticals we want to address, and how do we want to do that? And I think that comes from it being a still developing space. Everyone has to find their place. So I think that's one of the first thing that in the value chain position is 2 very important things. And also what type of enterprises to focus on and what are their go-to-market strategies. So we put together, based on all these interviews, put together this framework and some of our key insights from that. So it's a good report. You should check it out. And especially if you're in the telco space, it's good to see what your peers are doing there across the world, because this is from our operators all
that's
over
awesome. Well, great. I appreciate the insight on the report. I don't really have too much else. I think this has been fantastic. It's very great, in my opinion, to talk to people who do the marketing in the IoT space, especially for large companies who are very successful, since IoT for All kind of is a marketing platform, if you will, for IoT specifically. So this has been fantastic. Yeah. I really appreciate your time. I hope you enjoy MWC Americas. I think it'll be a great event. Hopefully, you said the weather out there is nice right now. So that's a big benefit. It's rainy here. So that's so nice.
It's beautiful.
How long are you there for?
I'm actually tomorrow evening. I'm flying to San Francisco for a couple of meetings with at our office there. So I have a bit of a California round trip here, and then I go back to Stockholm on Friday. But thank you so much for having me. This has been a lovely conversation. It's so nice to speak about this topic with another expert. Like you say, you don't get to do too much.
No, not at all. But this has been great. Again, thank you so much for your time. Hopefully, I would love to have you back on in maybe 6 months from now, and we can talk about what's happened in the 6-month period in the IoT space and how that affects marketing. And I think that would be really cool to talk about and shed some light on for those out there who are kind of implementing their own marketing strategies for their own platforms, their own products, services, solutions, all that good stuff in IoT.
Absolutely. Would love to. Yeah. Great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. All right, everyone. Thanks again for joining us this week on the IoT for All podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, please leave us a rating or review and be sure to subscribe to our podcast on whichever platform you're listening to us on. Also, if you have a guest you'd like to see on the show, please drop us a note at ryan@iotforall.com and we'll do everything we can to get them as a featured guest. Other than that, thanks again for listening and we'll see you next time.